Wendy Marie Trapaga was born on April 29, 1981 in Miami, Florida, to Miriam and Ernest Trapaga. Despite the significant age difference, Miriam was 21 years younger than Ernest. Wendy's parents sincerely loved each other, and the girl grew up in an atmosphere of love and religiosity. Wendy was a real daddy's girl, adored him, and looked forward to her father's return from every trip. Ernest worked as a cargo plane pilot and was often on the road, but he always brought gifts to his beloved daughter. On March 31, 1988, a tragedy occurred that changed the lives of 6-year-old Wendy and her family forever. The airplane Ernest was piloting caught fire shortly after takeoff at an altitude of 150 feet and crashed into an empty area near the runway. All passengers and crew, including 61-year-old Ernest, died on the spot. This terrible loss came as a huge shock to little Wendy and affected the rest of her life. Miriam, who herself had experienced the sudden death of her beloved husband, made every effort to support her daughter during this difficult period and provide her with a secure future. She got a job as an assistant administrator at a school and gradually worked her way up the ranks until she became the head of the extracurricular programs department at a Miami-Dade County elementary school. Miriam later married Juan Benitez for the second time. Wendy became very close to her new half-siblings, who surrounded her with love and care. Wendy spent her teenage years calmly and happily with her loving family. The girl was fond of beauty and fashion, dreaming of a future job in the beauty industry. After graduating from high school, Wendy was even married for a while, but the marriage was short-lived. Inspired by the example of two relatives who had their own beauty salons, she entered the Label Cosmetology School in Miami in 2002. Michel Escoto, a tall, handsome, and very well-groomed young man, studied in the same group as Wendy. He was one of the few male students and immediately attracted Wendy's attention with his striking appearance and seductive demeanor. Michel was a real heartthrob, showering Wendy with compliments and quickly winning her affection. Despite the fact that he was almost 10 years older than her and belonged to a different social circle, they developed a close relationship that quickly turned romantic. However, Michel did not tell his new friend that he had been dating another woman, Yolanda Cirillo, a 28-year-old single mother, for more than 2 years. Michel even lived with Yolanda, who was unaware of his tendency to have affairs with other women behind her back. While Yolanda was waiting for him at home, Michel spent more and more time with Wendy, demonstrating his sincere affection for her and his desire to be close to her. Wendy and Michel's romance developed rapidly, and in less than 3 months, the couple announced their decision to get married. It came as a surprise to Wendy's family, especially her mother Miriam, who thought the move was hasty and rash. Miriam was concerned that the newlyweds had no stable income and even lived in a half-empty apartment, sleeping on the floor. Nevertheless, Wendy insisted on her decision, explaining to her mother that she was pregnant and wanted to have a child in a legal marriage. Despite the doubts of her family, Michel and Wendy were married on October 10, 2002, at Miami Beach City Hall. The ceremony was modest, without a lavish celebration. After the wedding, the couple went on a short honeymoon to the picturesque town of Key West, Florida, located in the southern part of the state. However, already during this trip, the first cracks in the couple's relationship appeared. Michel and Wendy quarreled over her drinking despite her pregnancy, which, as it turned out later, was fictitious. A honeymoon and a murder. Upon returning to Miami on Sunday evening, the newlyweds decided to continue their wedding celebration. Michel booked a room in a luxury hotel known for its romantic atmosphere. Wendy called her mother to inform her about the change of plans and to share her joy at the unexpected surprise arranged by her husband. They had planned a dinner at a restaurant, maybe a movie, and dancing at a nightclub. Despite some concerns for her pregnant daughter's health, Miriam was happy to see her happiness. Around midnight, Michel and Wendy arrived at the hotel. They spent several hours in the room enjoying each other's company. Wendy was happy and had no idea that this night would be her last. At about 4 a.m. on October 14, 2002, just 4 days after the wedding, Michel and Wendy left the hotel. On the way, a heated argument broke out between them. According to Michel's later testimony, Wendy confessed to him that she was not actually pregnant. An angry Michel got out of the car outside their home in South Beach, leaving Wendy alone in the car. That was the last time he saw his fiancée alive. On the morning of October 14th, 2002, at approximately 5:30 a.m., Miriam was awakened by the ringing of her phone. Even before she picked up the phone, she was seized by a terrible premonition of trouble. On the other end of the line was Michel Escoto, who asked in confusion if Miriam knew where Wendy was. The man said that last night they had had a fight in the car over Wendy's drinking, after which she dropped him off at his house and drove away. Michel allegedly tried to call his wife, but to no avail. Having agreed to inform each other in case of any news, the father-in-law and daughter-in-law ended the conversation. Miriam could not find a place to sit because she was worried about her daughter. Meanwhile, at about 6 a.m., a sanitation worker driving around Miami's northwestern industrial zone noticed the body of a young woman in a parking lot between two cars. The deceased was Wendy Trapaga. Her identity was quickly established thanks to her driver's license and other documents in a purse lying nearby. The horrific picture that the forensic experts saw shocked even seasoned experts. Wendy's face was mutilated almost beyond recognition, her entire body covered with numerous blunt force traumas. However, the weapon of the crime was not found at the scene. When Miriam learned the terrible news, she was completely heartbroken. At that moment, she received a call from Michel, who asked if there was any news about Wendy. Sobbing, the woman did not know how to tell her husband that his young wife was dead. One of the police officers joined the conversation and said that detectives would soon visit Michel to discuss the situation in detail. Stunned by the news of Wendy's death, Michel was unable to say a word. After giving him a few minutes to recover from the shock, the investigators invited Escoto to come with them to the police station and give a statement. During a 14-hour interrogation, Michel Escoto told detectives his version of the events leading up to Wendy's murder. According to him, around 3 a.m., the couple was returning home from the hotel when a heated argument broke out between them over Wendy's drinking. The girl admitted that she was not really pregnant, which made Michel even angrier. Once at their house, the man got out of the car, leaving Wendy alone to cool off. That was the last time he saw his wife alive. An autopsy of Wendy's body showed that she had been struck 15 to 20 times with a blunt object to the face and neck. It is possible that the murder weapon was a wrench. The injuries caused her head to become almost unrecognizable. Traces of strangulation were found on the victim's neck. It seems that the killer tried to cut off her air supply. There were traces of someone else's DNA under Wendy's nails, and alcohol and sleeping pills in her blood. According to the experts, the death occurred between 3 and 5 a.m., between the time the couple returned from the hotel and the discovery of the body. The pathologists also confirmed that Wendy was not pregnant. Studying the details of Michel Escoto's life, investigators found out that a few months before his wife's death, he had taken out an insurance policy for her worth $1 million. In the event of Wendy's death, the only beneficiary of the insurance was her husband, which led detectives to believe that there was a possible financial motive for the murder. But despite all the suspicions, there was no direct evidence against Michel. No murder weapon, fingerprints, or other traces linking him to Wendy's death were found at the crime scene. The mother and stepfather of the deceased, Miriam and Juan Benitez, made every effort to ensure that Michel did not receive insurance. The civil trial in this case lasted 3 years, during which Escoto testified several times, getting confused by the details and raising more and more suspicion with his behavior. Despite this, it was not possible to prove his involvement in Wendy's murder for a long time. A breakthrough in the investigation came from the analysis of Michel Escoto's phone calls. One of them, made at 3:15 a.m. on the day of Wendy's murder, led detectives to the suspect's ex-girlfriend, Yolanda Cirillo. During interrogation, the woman confessed that Michel had cheated on her with Wendy and then suddenly left her. Once Cirillo met with Escoto, and he admitted that he had fictitiously married Wendy, ostensibly because she was pregnant, but in fact because of insurance. Yolanda also said that she last saw Michel in the early morning hours of October 14, 2002, when he arrived at her house covered in blood and holding a screwdriver. Together, they hid his bloody clothes and got rid of the murder weapon. Yolanda Cirillo's testimony became a key piece of evidence in the case against Michel Escoto. After many years of investigation and court hearings, the suspect was finally found guilty of premeditated murder in the first degree in April 2014. During the hearings, Cirillo described in detail the preparation and implementation of the horrific plan. How Michel drugged Wendy in the hotel room, how he drove her to a deserted place on the outskirts of Miami in the middle of the night, how he beat his wife over the head with a screwdriver, and then asked Yolanda to help him get rid of the body and evidence. Michel Escoto was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Yolanda Cirillo avoided punishment in exchange for her testimony, a circumstance that outraged Wendy's family. They were convinced that Yolanda had played a more active role in the murder than she had told the police and deserved to be punished as severely as Michel. Nevertheless, this criminal case has finally come to an end, and the perpetrators, at least the main suspect, have been punished for the brutal murder of 21-year-old Wendy Trapaga. The girl's grieving family was able to find solace, at least in part, in the knowledge that justice had been served.